On the question of democratic centralism, one central issue that we have to discuss, and maybe ongoing discussion should take place, and that is the concept of central democratism, and why this is important in every individual country, parties or organizations that take place, and in particular the international level. Version is this, that we have internal democracy, and when we make a decision, we go and centralize this experience and the line of the organization to the society at large. So democracy means internal democracy. We have discussions, and the subjective factor of democratic centralism is this, that there is a right for tendencies, the right of factions, and even open factions. And so basically, it is the sort of presentation traditionally we have been told, and we have seen in various international organizations, in particular Trotskyist organizations. Basically, in our opinion, with the experience we've had in two international organizations like USEC, when we entered Iran, and we were actually the section of USEC in Iran, and also after our second exile, we joined after a few years IMT, International Marxist Tendency, which was split off CWI. And this experience showed to us that this presentation, in fact, with this international organization, is a caricature of an organization. It's not a genuine sort of the genuine content of the central democratism in revolutionary organizations. Because as soon as we have seen, witness in all the organizations, as soon as there is a slight dispute, disagreements, or even questions come about, suddenly the whole atmosphere will change, and we end up with not having democracy. And also the centralization issue is something very, very superficial, in a sense that they pretend that they're centralizing certain ideas to the society, which that doesn't even happen as such, in a sense that the whole sort of organization and international organizations that we have experienced, they present themselves as a caricature of even Leninist organization or a vanguard organization. It is caricature because the concept of centralism is being misconceived, in the sense that they think, usually all of us in any organization, we have this impression that when we have a democratic debate, then centralism is one way. That means we centralize our agreements and our line or our program, we take it to the society at large. So that is the general sort of conception of centralism. While in reality, according to the experience of Bolshevik Party in Russia, and also writings of Trotsky himself afterwards, after exile, it is, in reality, centralism is a two-way road. That means the ideas develop in the party, analysis by mainly the sort of theoreticians and Marxists who are well equipped with the theories and read many of the books and various sort of analysis they make on objective situation. So they present this sort of view, and the rest of the members will eventually vote for it, and then it will centralize and go to the society to be implemented. However, there is another sort of centralization of the ideas, is when the ideas are tested on the ground. There is a two-way road of centralism. One way is the theories develop and program develop in a party, goes to the masses. And the other thing, it is tested on the ground, these ideas, and then it has to be returned to the party to see whether these ideas work on the ground or not. So this centralization, that is a return of this centralization, is missing, in fact, in most of these organizations. So the question is this: who is going to test these ideas, these good ideas that the leadership of our organization develops and agrees upon within the working class in particular and other layers in the society? That issue is very important, and that is, in fact, the idea, the basic idea of Bolshevism that Lenin talked about, and that is the vanguard. In our society, we have workers, but we have vanguard workers. Vanguard means the workers who have gained consciousness through practical activities. If these elements, vanguard workers or vanguard women movement and vanguard national minorities, whatever part of the class struggle that is developing in capitalist society, are absent, they are not in the organization, then the organization bound to go wrong. There is going to be bureaucratization taking place and some sort of caricature of organization that they pretend they are the leaders of the working class in the society or internationally in the whole world. They are themselves, these intellectuals in these organizations, are the vanguard of the workers. They replace themselves, the intellectual theoreticians in the organization, as the vanguard, which is false, in fact, analysis. The vanguard, as far as the Lenin's organization is concerned, are the elements who are leading the working class, who have been accepted by the working class, not necessarily even Marxists, but they have gained anti-capitalist consciousness while they're struggling, and they have been accepted by thousands of workers in any particular factory or in society at large. And that vanguard is the only element can test the ideas on the ground. So if this vanguard is absent in an organization, therefore this organization cannot actually experience the testing of their ideas, or however good that may be, on the ground. So the intervention within working class is linked to recruitment of the vanguard of these organizations. It is not an accident that in 1905, when Lenin started this idea of the vanguard party in opposition to general parties, workers' parties, as Mensheviks were saying, he says exactly that in regard to the committees and cells that were forming by the Bolsheviks, that he says very clearly from the beginning that for every cell that we form, every committee we form, for every 2 intellectuals, there should be 8 workers. So in fact, this is the way that an organization on the basis of the society should be formed. That means recruitment of the vanguard, of the leaders, of the workers within the organization. And also the article comrades recently put on the coordination side about what Trotsky has written. If they asked Trotsky that some American comrades in the 1930s that there is no democracy in the party and organizations, he's actually explaining that democracy and central democratism, what it means, it has to have on the basis of tactics and strategy, and also we shouldn't make a big issue about these ideas. But at the end, the last paragraph is very important what Trotsky writes. Again, according to the experience of the Bolshevik Party, because Trotsky, as comrades know, was not a Bolshevik until nearing the revolution. He was critical, in fact, of that concept of the vanguard party, but he accepted, he criticized himself, he agreed with Lenin's concept. But he, in this article, after the Russian Revolution, 1930s, he says to the young comrades in America that in order to achieve democracy within organization and all this criticism that you have, what you have to do now is to go and recruit few workers to the organization. And those young workers will deal with bureaucracy. And those young workers within organization that we recruited will, in fact, oppose this anti-democratic attitude of your leadership. This is his actually last paragraph that he mentions that. So this is also not accident, when Trotsky talks about that. So therefore, these organizations, the main element, the vanguard vanguard workers, if they actually are absent, therefore this return centralization will never take place. If this return of centralization, which is the job of the people on the ground, doesn't take place, then the whole of organizations become a caricature of organization and it deviates. However, nice intention, good intentions the leaders should have, that we want democracy and there is discussions, etc. And so these discussions without implementation and without intervention on the ground doesn't mean anything. We cannot, have good, very theoretical discussions without testing it on the ground. And the vanguard actually is the only element that can test that. So in order to, in fact, having the vanguard and having testing this theoretical program that we develop, we need democracy. This is an objective reason that we need democracy. That means if there is a differences of opinion from the people on the ground to the party, then they should have the right to form their tendency and fight for the sort of right, correct line to implement. Different opinions in an organization between few intellectuals, it doesn't mean anything, because some intellectuals can say that this is the way forward. The other intelligent will come, Marxist intelligent in the organization will say this is the view, and they have conflict in view. But how can they know which is able to implement itself in the society if there is no vanguard in the organization? So without this vanguard, even this disagreements, however much it may be democratic or undemocratic, doesn't mean anything. This is the basic issues of the generation and bureaucratization of these organizations, because these polemics, these debates, etc., is not tested on the ground, and they don't even many of the organizations I have seen for about 500 maybe intellectuals, there may be 2 workers, and those 2 workers are not vanguard workers. So just normal workers who are, doing certain activities. But vanguard worker, as far as Lenin is concerned, is the worker who are actually the leaders of the thousands of workers in any factory. That is, in fact, the idea of democracy will come out of recruitment of these vanguards to the organization and opening the way that the testing of the theoretical discussions and program can come back to the organization, and then we develop the correct line in order to intervene and prepare for the revolution. Because if we have, like, for example, 5 even vanguard workers who are representing thousands of workers in our organization, that means we have influence of thousands of workers we can influence in various factories and various sort of workplaces. And that is how the question of preparation of the revolution can take place. So what the conclusion that I presented was that if we don't have this element of the vanguard workers or vanguard leaders of various sort of sections of the society within our organization, this centralization is always one way, and that is not, if it's not returned, if it's not experienced on the ground, the organizations will be a caricature organization that pretends to be revolutionary and so on, but they have no force on the ground. And in order to have the vanguard, we need democratization inside the organization. So the sort of feedback from the tested theories and program within organization has to be ensured by this democracy. So the democracy within organization, centralization in this two-way centralization is essential part of building an organization and building an international eventually. So finally, these were all the objective reasons for these deviations and bureaucratization that is taking place in our opinion. There is also some subjective issues and solutions as well, other leaders, and they around themselves, they build permanent full-timers. So these permanent full-timers, of course, are in the service of this main leader, and they can bureaucratize internal life of an organization that comrades have suffered, and we have suffered by these bureaucrats that are there permanently. So therefore, in order to reduce that sort of bureaucratization, we have to think about a system that there is a rotating, in fact, presentation of bureaucracy in the leadership. So that will put some sort of measure to stop some layers of comrades to be separated from the totality. First of all the comrades have to experience sort of interventions. They cannot be, full-timer for life. And also politically, misuse of power will take place if somebody is permanent there. So therefore, we have to have a rotating bureaucrats in the organization and international organization to be able to resolve this problem that we have had in other organizations, and also, of course, presentation of democratic right and tendency right, faction right, etc. That we all agree. So in that way, while we are approaching the vanguard worker and we're recruiting workers to the organization and internationally, in future we have an internal democratic sort of structure that will reduce the sort of misuse of power. Thank you very much.